Everyone, I am Lyza Maraño from the English 3A, and I am here to discuss the topic Vietnam, the land of ascending dragon, together with Sheila May Gulla. And for the objectives, at the end of the lesson, the students are expected to discuss the history, characteristic, and influential people of Vietnamese literature, and to highlight the development of Vietnam literature and to identify the notable works of the writers in Vietnamese literature.
Vietnam is known as the land of the ascending dragon because of its geographical shape of the world map that looks like a dragon. Dragon has been a legendary animal of the oriented countries in China, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Cambodia. Vietnam is a socialist republic of Vietnam. The capital city of Vietnam is Hanap, is spelled as Hanoi. Also, Vietnam's flag consists of two colors, the red and yellow. The red symbolizes revolution and bloodshed, while the golden star represents the five classes in Vietnam society, which is the intellectual, farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, and soldiers. Also, Vietnam has a 96 million population, making it as the 15th most populous country. And also it is known for its beaches, rivers, bodies, pagodas, and bustling cities. The religion of Vietnam, most of the people there worshipping their ancestors, and they believe in animism. When we say animism, it is they believe that all things in nature has a spirit. For example, rock, animals, rivers, plants, weather, and even humans. They are also known as Tem Giao, and they are known for being triple religion, but their two major religion is Buddhism and Catholicism. Wherein in Buddhism religion, they believe that the human cycle is suffering and rebirth. And Catholicism naman, it emphasizes the tradition of venerations of the saints. Vietnam is known or famous for its rice noodles or po. It is a traditional Vietnamese noodle soup with a rich beef broth and tender rice noodles. It is often enjoyed as a comforting meal, especially when you were feeling under the weather. It originated in northern Vietnam in the 20th century. The dish evolved the combination of local Vietnamese and Chinese culinary traditions. Next is Vietnamese coffee, wherein it is not just a coffee for them, it's a way of making life. It started in the mid-19th century when the French colonized the Vietnam. They also introduced the coffee cultivation. The other one is the national costume audit. It is a Vietnam's national dress. It is also one of the most striking symbols of beauty. It is appreciated by the young and women also. It started in 1744 when the Vietnam was divided into two territories, which is the inner land, the Dang Trong, and the outer land. And to distinguish people, they worn different kind of odi. Next is the Phan Chien Mountain. It is known as the tallest mountain in Vietnam. It is over 3,147.3 meters or 10,326 feet. It is located in Lao Cai province near the town of Sapa. Next is the Halong Bay. It is a 12-kilometer long coastal and literally translated as the Bay of Descending Dragons, wherein it is a stunning natural wonder located in northeastern Vietnam. It is known for its emerald waters and thousands of towering limestones island topped with a lush rainforest. Next is the Temple of Literature, is a Hanoi historic site dedicated to Confucius. It is also the Vietnam's first national university. It is founded in 1070 by Emperor Lai Tan Tong and has been a great center of learning and culture for centuries. Next is Ngok Sun Temple. It is the most visited temple in capital of Hanoi. It is also known as the Temple of Jade Mountain. Uh, it is a beautiful and historic temple located in a small island of lake in Hanoi, Vietnam. Next is the Mekong, their longest river. It is the 12th most world's longest river and also the third longest river in Asia. And it has a very significant in terms of agriculture and biodiversity, also in transportation, because most because in transportation, Vietnam has a limited road infrastructure, and also the Mekong has a um, uh, very rich, diverse ecosystems wherein it has a numerous fish species, and also it helps millions of people through cultivation and fishing. List of influential people in Vietnam is Hon Chen Man. He is Uncle Hu, and he is the reason why Vietnam it is today. He also the one who continued to struggle and support the National Front for the Liberation and on Vietnam, and he also supports the independence of Vietnam. The next is Nguyen Yuen Tip. He wrote a number of short stories and play, and it is said to be the origin of the literary renaissance movement in Vietnam in 1980s. And he was considered the representative of new generation of writers who wanted to distinguish themselves from the socialist and realism. Next is Ngo Viet Tong. To he designed the Palace of Independence in Saigon during the 1960s. He is also the first Asian architect to be elected an honorary member of the American Institute of Architects. He is also um, He is also an international architect on the major projects such as the University of Medicine in Saigon and the Cité Internationale des Arts in Paris, and he is one of the most famous people in Vietnam. Next is Nguyen Trec. He was the president of Vietnam from 2008 to 2011. He also joined the Communist Party during the 1965, and during the 1962 he appointed party leader of Songbi province, and he also launched a campaign against organized crime and corruption, making him one of the most famous people in Vietnam, like the other influential people of Vietnam. Next is Margaret Duras. She was a French writer, playwright, screenwriter, and director, born in 1941 in Saigon. Her childhood in French, Indochina, and romances in Vietnam was the source of inspirations most of her work. And some of her famous works are On Barrage contre le Pacifique, or translated to The Seawall in 1952, and El Diamant, translated to The Lover, which describe her young affair with a healthy aristocrat in Vietnam. Vietnam's history is marked by the periods of foreign domination, resistance, and unification. From ancient times, Vietnam experienced Chinese rule, followed by periods of independence and conflict with the neighboring kingdoms. The country faced French colonialism in the 19th century, leading to a struggle for independence that culminated in the mid-20th century. The Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975, further shapes its modern history, resulting in the reunification of North and South Vietnam under the communist rule in 1976. Today, Vietnam is known for its rich cultural heritage and rapid economic development. And now let's move on to the Vietnamese literature characteristics. And literature was born roughly in the 10th century. Up to the 20th century, there had been two components existing at the same time. Works written in the hand characters that consist or with poems and prose demonstrating the Vietnamese souls and realities, and thus they were still regarded as Vietnamese literature. And works written in Nam character, it is mostly poems. Many great works were handed down to the later generations. Also, the written literature attained speedy development after the August Revolution, when it was directed by the Vietnamese Communist Party guideline that focuses on the people's fighting and working life in folk literature held by a great significance in Vietnam. Next is the Vietnamese literature development. For millennium before the 11th century, the Vietnam was dominated by China. And as a result, much of the written work during this time was in a classical Chinese. Nam character was created around the 10th century, and it is flourished in the 18th century, when it briefly became the official written script, while the Quoc Ngo, the script was written in the 17th century by the Portuguese missionaries who modified the Roman alphabet. And by the mid-20th century, virtually all Vietnamese works literature were composed in Quoc Ngo. And now let's move on to Vietnamese prose and poetry. It is originated in the form of folk poetry and proverbs. Vietnamese poetic structures include loc bat, loc bat, and various styles shared with classical Chinese poetry forms. Also, Vietnamese prose and poetry span centuries, transitioning from oral traditions and Chinese-influenced classical works to modern literature that reflects Vietnamese rich culture heritage, historical struggles, and contemporary social issues. And now let's move on to the myths of the Vietnam. First is the fairy tale of the Moon Boy. It is only the summary of this story. It revolves around Koi, an orphan and woodcutter who finds a magical banyan tree with the healing properties due to accidental action by his wife. Koi is carried away the tree by the moon when he remains. And the story is traditionally told during the mid-autumn or the 12th lunar year festival in Vietnam. It symbolizes also the importance of kindness, care for nature, and caution against carelessness. Next is the Vietnamese creation myth. It centers around Lac Long Quao, the dragon lord, and Ao Cu, the fairy land. According to the myth, the dragon lord and the sea dragon and a mountain fairy, they fell in love and married. They had 100 of eggs, which 50 hatched and became the ancestors of the Vietnamese people. And the other 50 went up to the mountain and the sea, symbolizing the unity and diverse of Vietnamese people. Next myth is the fight against the disasters. The legend of the mountain god and the water god. The 18th Hong King held a contest for his daughter's hand. Son Ten, the mountain god, and the water god named Toi Ten. The mountain god won, but Toyen engraved and flooded the land. So Son Ten fought back, protecting the people, and Toyen retreated, vowing revenge. And every year that Tonyen, or the water god, returns, he brings storms and floods. And every year the mountain god had to protect or defend the land. And this legend remains as to the ongoing battle against the nature and the resilience of the Vietnamese people. And the theme of the fighting against disasters in Vietnamese literature often revolves around the resilience, survival, and the human spirit in the face of the natural calamities, wars, and social upheaval. Next is Tao Quan. It is a three Vietnamese kitchen gods known as the Tao Can in Vietnam. It is believed that to reside in every home's kitchen, watching over the families. And on the 23rd of the 12th lunar month or December in our calendar, they departed to report to the Jade Emperor on the families that they observe. And Vietnamese families offers food and gifts, hoping for their blessings and protection. And its significant figure in Vietnamese culture and literature that the legend of the Taucan revolves um, revolves are often depicted in folk tales and stories that highlights the theme of morality, family, and importance of good deeds. Next is the four elements: the turtle, the dragon, the unicorn, and the phoenix. And the four elements are actually the four symbol or the four sacred animals of Chinese mythology, which represented the four elements and cardinal directions. The black um, tortoise or turtle is a north water winter. The Azori dragon or the dragon is east wood spring. And the white tiger west metal autumn. And the vermilion bird or the phoenix is south fire and summer. The four sacred animals are an important part of East Asian mythology, reflecting the deep understanding of the natural world and its interconnectedness. Also, it symbolizes the connectedness, like what I have said, of nature and human life that reflects the culture and philosophical belief through the themes of stability, renewal, passion, and intellect. The last myth in my part is the Kadao. The term Kadao is derived from the line of the Xingjing, also known as the Book of the Odes or Book of Songs, which is one of the oldest and most important um, collections of Chinese poetry. And the word Kadao can be loosely translated as an accompanied song or folk song. This poem is characterized by their simple, direct language, often reflecting the daily lives and emotions of ordinary people.
I am Shiela Mae and this is the continuation of the report of Miss Maraño. So we will now proceed to the Tale of Kiao. The Tale of Kiao is a renowned epic poem by Nguyen Du. It is considered as the pinnacle of Vietnamese literature. This masterpiece tells a story about a talented woman or a talented young girl who endures uh, hardships and injustice, including prostitution, to save her family. It is written in a traditional lukbat verse from Truyan Kiao, or also known as the Tale of Kiao. Uh, it explores themes of love, loss, betrayal, and resilience, offering a poignant reflection of Vietnamese society and enduring the power of the human spirit. Vietnamese literature development. Before the 11th century, the Vietnam was dominated by China, and as a result, much of written works during that time was a classical Chinese. Nom characters, Chu Nom. It was created around the 10th century and it flourished around 18th century when many notable Vietnamese writers and poets composed their works. When many notable Vietnamese writers and poets composed their works using Chu Nom. This rich literary tradition continues to evolve, embracing realism and social commentary while exploring the complexities of human experiences. So the next one is the legend of Kwan Am, also known as Kuan Yin or Avalokiteshvara. That it tells a story about Tikin, a beautiful woman who marries a peasant. Um, Despite finding happiness in her love, she was falsely accused and cast out by her family and community. Seeking solace, she entered a Buddhist monastery but faced further hardships and was ultimately expelled. Her compassion, however, was evident when she cared for a child left at the temple gates, and her death at the temple gates moved the Emperor of China, who elevated her divinity as Quan Am Tong Tu, the compassionate protectress of children. Her image holding a child is a symbol of her enduring compassion and serenity, deeply revered in Vietnam and throughout Far East. So the next one is the Vietnamese dragon legends, history and geography. So dragon has been the most famous and legendary animal of the oriented countries since the World War II. Uh, with the emergence of international scene of East Asia, the media have made more and more frequent use of the dragon logo or image uh, in reference to China and countries under the influence of Chinese culture. But while all those countries have in common a memorial myth of the dragons, none of them have gone so far to claim as the Vietnamese do. Vietnamese dragon legend, Con Rong Chao Tien, which translates children of the dragon, grandchildren of the fairy. It refers to a foundational myth in Vietnamese culture explaining the origin of Vietnamese people. The myth tells a story of Lac Long Quan, a dragon king, and Ao Ko, a fairy goddess. They married each other and had 100 children. These children, born from a sack of 100 eggs, these 100 children are believed to be the ancestors of Vietnamese people. The dragon symbolizes strength, power, and prosperity, and is its association with the origin of the Vietnamese people makes it a powerful symbol of national identity. The phrase Con Rong Chao Tien is often used to express the pride in Vietnamese heritage and to emphasize the shared ancestry of Vietnamese people. It is a reminder of deep connection between Vietnamese people and the mythical origins. Legend of Con Rong Chao Tien and its effects. It was an effective reference in the struggle against foreign aggressors, Chinese and French. Many Confucian scholars and modern militants use that reference to mobilize the masses. 6th century under Chinese rule, the resistance of hero Troy Quang Phuc established a guerrilla base in the swampy area of lake that came into being overnight. Dam the Track. This is the place where the demigod Chu Dong took his flight to heaven. A Hong King was believed to come down from heaven riding a dragon and to present the national hero with claw of fabulous animal, a symbol of his invisibility and legitimacy. In the late 1920s, Vietnam Coc Dan Dang, the Vietnamese National Party, evoked the dragon fairy stock in its appeal to the people. We are children of southern country of La Viet race, of Dong Bang Hong Bang dynasty. How could we resign ourselves to being oppressed? Uh, in 1954, following the victory over French colonial troops, President Ho Chi Minh, before the temple dedicated the Hong Kings, addressed the troops about to liberate Hanoi in these terms. The Hong Kings had the merit of creating our country. We, their descendants, must defend it. At the time, it was a myth cited because of archaeological excavation identifying Bronze Age. The myth of dragon and the fairy with an or- ornithological tinge and to- Ptolemaic connotation would, would find a scientific justification. It reflected the process of formation the Vietnamese people whose conquest the Song Hong or the Red River Delta was relatively slow to come. It was only possible when the population who had first settled in the foothills had grown numerous enough to launch the river. Miss Dragon history. The Vietnam Dragon in Lai Dynasty from 1009 to 1226. In 1010, King Lai Tai, who left Walu in Nibin province, chose Tang Long, the Rising Dragon, as the capital of Dai Viet or Vietnam's old name. Then the dragon became the noble symbol, the power of royal family, and the religious Buddhism. It is embodied in a sleek, sophisticated, artistic complex with a complete layout and unique style which can be seen in the decor of architecture. Dragon in Tran Dynasty from 1226 to 1400s. The Vietnamese dragon in this period had many differences from the previous one. The body of the dragon was bigger, stronger, horns appeared on the dragon's heads and ears. The majestic shape of Vietnam dragon brings new meaning to the dynasty, encouraging the spirit of all people to fight against three invasions of Mongolia. Miss Dragon in Nguyen Dynasty from 1802 to 1945. The Nguyen Dynasty, the Vietnamese dragon still kept the country tradition combining with the modern art from Western countries. It was removed the verbose details of its head and body, replaced by simple ones which make the dragon delicate and more luxurious. The dragon of the Nguyen dynasty remains relatively in temples, pagodas from Yu to the red rivers of Delta. The Vietnamese notable writers and their works. So the first one is we have Viet Thanh Nguyen. So Viet Thanh Nguyen is the author of Sympathizer, a Pulitzer Prize winning novel. Uh, he also has many works under his name, such as The Refugees and Nothing Ever Dies. Uh, Nguyen was born in Vietnam and he's he came to United States as a refugee in 1975. Uh, much of his writing is came from his experience from living in Vietnam. But today he serves as an English professor in University of Southern California. Second one is Helen Wang. So Helen Wang is a Vietnamese American author who writes romantic novels, and one of her famous works or debut novels is Kiss Quotients. This book has two sequels, and Huang was born to a Vietnamese immigrant in Minnesota and moved to California when she got older. Third one is Do Tu Hong. So, Do Tu Hong is the author of Paradise of the Blind, Journey in Childhood, and Beyond Illusions, initially published in Vietnam. These books were censored due to their content. Her books, The Lost Life, was first Vietnamese novel published in English in the United States. Tu Hong was born in 1947 and was a member of the Communist Party until her writing got her expelled in the 1980s. Her writings even caused her imprisonment in 1991. Despite these challenges, she continues to publish works that challenge the political states in Vietnam. We have Andrew Expam. Andrew Expam wrote Catfish in Mandala, a two-wheeled voyage through the landscape of memory of Vietnam. In addition to his work as an author, Palm worked as an aircraft engineer, technical writer, pizza chef, and many other positions. Lilay High Sleep. So, High Sleep is the author of When Heaven and Earth Change Places, a Vietnamese woman journey from war to peace. This book is a memoir of her life in war torn Vietnam as a child and teenager. Her second book, Child of War, Woman of Peace, also chronicles her experience as a Vietnamese American. High Sleep was born in a small Vietnamese town and was just 12 years old when the war reached her village. As a teenager, she was captured by South Vietnamese government, faced torture, and was sentenced to death before fleeing to Saigon. High Sleep married an American contractor and moved to California as a result. In addition to writing, she worked as a humanitarian and was awarded the California State Assembly Award in 1995. Bowning. So Bowning is a pen name for the author Huang Aopong. So he is the author of novels, essays, and short stories which centers on on his experience as a teenager during the Vietnam War. His most famous and first novel, The Sorrow of War, Ning was just 13 years old when the American bombing raids came to his country. So he served in a youth brigade during the war, fighting against the American troops. And unlike the many authors on the list, he never migrated to the United States. Thich Nhat Hanh was a Vietnamese poet and a leader who founded the Plum Village tradition, eventually inspiring Buddhism. His focus on mindfulness is seen throughout his poetry, and he also wrote Vietnam Lotus in Sea of Fire. The main focus of Han's life has been his religious work. In 1967, he nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He died early at 2022 at the age of 95. Lan Cao. Lan Cao is a Vietnamese American novelist and the author of Family of in Six Stones, Monkey Bridge, and The Lotus and the Storm. Many of her works are autobiographical, pulling off from her own experiences with war and loss. Ka was born in Saigon in 1961. During this violent time, she found a love for reading, and over time that developed into passion for writing. In 1975, an American officer adopted Kao and moved her to Connecticut, and eventually her birth parents joined her in the country. Nguyen Van Khimai is an award-winning Vietnamese writer who has 11 books to her name, including nonfiction, short fiction, and books and poetry. The Mountain Sings is an international bestseller finalist for Dayton Literary Peace Prize. Being named as the best book of 2020 by many sources, Kimai was born in a small village near Vietnam before migrated to the country when she was 6. Her parents worked as a teachers and rice farmers, and she worked alongside them. Eventually, she earned a scholarship to Monash University in Australia, where she earned a degree in business before returning into the United States. She started writing at the age of 33 and won several awards for her work, launching a successful literary career. Ocean Vuong. Ocean Vuong is a Vietnamese poet who wrote Time is Mother and a novel On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. His book has been translated into 34 languages. Night Sky with Exit Wounds, his first book of poetry, won the 2017 T.S. Eliot Prize, and was a New York Times top 10 books in 2016. Wong was born in Saigon and was raised in Connecticut. Before attending college, he worked hard and as an adolescent, earning a BA in 19th century American literature and FMA in poetry. He works as an associate professor at UMass Amherst and lives in Massachusetts. Tiboy. Tiboy is both an artist and a writer known for her illustrated works. Similar to graphic novels, she writes on the theme of displacement and what is does to our children and families quite often. The Best We Could Do is her most recent work, published in 2017. She was born in Vietnam but made her way to the United States in 1978. Andrew Lam. Andrew Lam is known as the writer and a journalist receiving the Pen or Beyond Margins Awards for Perfume Dreams, Reflection on the Vietnamese Diaspora, a collection of essays written in life on life for Vietnamese Americans. He also wrote a collection of short stories called Birds of Paradise Lost. Lam left Vietnam for America during the fall of Saigon. He attended the University of California, Berkeley, and majored biochemistry. He entered a creative writing program at San Francisco State University and began a career as a writer and a journalist. Hun Santong translated the poetry of Nguyen Chia Tien and its collection, Flowers from Hell. His work won the 1985 Poetry International Prize and earned him a MacArthur Fellowship in 1989. His Vietnamese American scholar was born in Vietnam in 1926 and died in Connecticut in 2008. During the Vietnam War, the French soldier arrested him and he was sent to a concentration camp. He's prompted to flee to the United States as a political refugee and he settled in Ohio, where he earned university education. Monique Trong. Has several award winning novels to her name, a children's book, and many essays. She wrote the Book of Salt in 2003, and the book became a national bestseller and winning of several awards, including the Bard Fiction Prize and the spot on the Miami Herald's top 10 book. Trong was born in Saigon and came to United States in 1975 as a refugee. Today, she resides in Brooklyn contributing essays to many popular magazines. Amy Pan. Amy Pan's first book, We Should Never Meet, won the Nobel Book nomination for the Kiriamos Prize in Fiction. It was also the finalist for 2005 Asian American Literary Awards. Pan was born and raised in Orange County to Vietnam parents and a Vietnamese American author. She earned a Bachelor of English from University of California, Los Angeles, and the Masters of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from University of Iowa Writers Workshop. Today, she is an associate professor of writing and literature at the California College of the Arts. Kim Thuy. Kim Thuy is a Vietnamese born writer who hails from Canada. Her first novel, Rue, won several awards for French language fiction in 2012. The English translation of the book hit the booksellers. When Thuy just turned 10 years old, she left Vietnam to flee to Saigon. They ended up in Canada because of their French language abilities, and later Thuy was given a job as a translator. To Hoai. The pen name of To Hai is derived from the names of Tolich River, and Wydok District, which are the landmarks of his hometown. Among his works are the bestsellers books Demenpu Lukay, Diary of a Cricket in 1941, Truyan Taibak, Stories of Northwest Region in 1958, Kena, or Hometown in 1970s, Bangokak, Three Others in 1991. Some of his works have been translated into foreign language. He won the Ho Chi Minh Prize for Literature in 1996.